This week, we are going to deal with 8.5, the changing form of your comments. Okay? So we'll have that today. Wednesday is going to be a very important day in terms of your understanding of the next couple of weeks. So Wednesday, big day. Thursday, then we'll get going. Friday this week. Friday is a review. Not a review. A formative Friday. Not a summative quiz this week. Right? Formative this week Friday. Then looking ahead to next week. Next week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, next week is a short week because we don't have school on Friday, and so we will be taking a summative quiz on that Thursday then here in class. Look and see just to make sure. Calendar, there it is. Calendar. Yes, we will be taking a summative quiz on Thursday the 25th. So formative on the 19th, summative quiz on the 25th, and then I'm looking at your test on May 2nd. May 2nd for your conic test. Okay? Cool. Okay. Let's do this.
What day did you just say?
So this week, Friday, is formative.
Yep.
Next week, Thursday, is quiz. Quiz that day. Test this. Test the next 2 Thursdays. Review. Final.
That's what I guessed.
Yep. Final then will spread over 2 days, and it will be on the 9th and the 10th of May. And that gives us a week then to get it done, because then you guys are done that next week. So really, what are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys have 5 weeks left. So, okay. One of these years, I'm going to graduate high school too. Okay. So, this should all be on your supplemental note sheet. So you shouldn't really have to write anything down for this on this slide. Okay? So the different parts or the different forms of conic sections are here. Okay? So you should have 2 equations for a parabola. One that has the x part squared, one that has the y part squared. Okay? So if the x is squared, remember that's our up and our down parabolas. If the y is squared, that's our left and our right parabolas. Okay? Then in the parabolas, we would have 4 things that we would ask you to find. So all those questions after you graph it on those, if you think back a couple weeks ago. So we would have you find the directrix, we would have you find the focus, we would have you find the vertex, we would have you find the axis. So those are the 4 things that we would have you find outside of the graph, outside of what it is. Okay? Then we moved on to circles in week number 2 of this unit. Okay? You should have the equation for a circle written down on your supplemental note sheet. And there's only 2 parts to find for that one, just the center, just the radius. So those things. Then the next week we went on to ellipses. Here's the equation for an ellipse that should be in your supplemental note sheet. And we asked you to find 3 key parts to an ellipse: the center, the 2 foci, and the 2 vertices. So you have to find those parts for that. Then last week we talked about hyperbolas, and again there were 2 different equations. The first equation is for our left and right. For our left and right opening hyperbolas. The second one for our up and down opening hyperbolas. And we asked you to find 4 key parts: the centers, the foci, the vertices, and the asymptotes. Okay? All right? But what we haven't talked about yet is how to differentiate between those 4. How do you know what's what in a conic. Okay? So let's talk about that today, because that's what we're going to talk about this week, is how we go about figuring out what is what. Okay? There's one easy one to figure out. Anybody know which of the four conics, parabola, hyperbola, ellipse, circle, is the easiest one to look at given an equation? Circle is not the easiest one. Circle is actually the hardest one. Really? Not lying. Really. Anybody know? Why the parabola? The parabola is the easiest one to find because it only has one variable that's squared. So it's got one squared term in it. Okay? So if you have an equation and you only see x squared, that's a parabola. If you only see y squared, that's a parabola. If you see x squared and y squared, that's not a parabola. Okay? That's something different. Okay? So a parabola is the easiest one to find because it's the only conic where one variable is not squared. So that means that there is only one squared. What's the second easiest conic to find based off of this equation? Nope. Again, still the hardest. Why the hyperbola? Why the hyperbola? Because what? What's being subtracted? The x squared from the y squared. Yes. The hyperbola is next because subtraction sets those two apart, those two squared terms. Okay? So easiest to find is the parabola, only got one squared term. Second easiest to find is if it's x squared minus y squared, or y squared minus x squared, then that's a hyperbola, because it's subtraction, setting them apart. Okay? Okay? Now, we got two left, and they look really similar, right? Okay? The only difference between a circle and an ellipse is when you get it equal to 1, the denominators below the x and the y terms will be equal if it's a circle, and they'll be different if it's an ellipse. Now, that's kind of like, what? The easier way to say it is an ellipse has different coefficients on the squared terms. Okay? If the coefficients on the squared terms are the same, it's a circle. If the coefficients on the squared terms are different, it's an ellipse. Okay? So, parabola has only one squared term. That's your first look to see. If you count two squared terms, parabola has been eliminated. Then the next thing you look for is there a subtraction sign between the x squared and the y squared. They would have to be on the same side of the equation in order for you to do that. Okay? So you have to look at that. Third thing, look at the coefficients on the squared term. Same circle, different ellipse. Okay? What I mean by that is This week, you are going to get things that look like this. Okay? And I'm going to ask you to do 2 things, maybe even 3 things, probably more than likely 3 things. The first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to tell me what it is. Circle, ellipse, hyperbola, parabola. Second thing that I'm going to have you do is I'm probably going to have you graph it at some point in time. Okay? And the third thing that I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you identify all of the key parts. Those key parts. Parabola, vertex, foci, axis symmetry, directors. In a circle, center, radius. In an ellipse, center, foci, vertices. In a hyperbola, center, foci, vertices, asymptotes. Okay? Okay? So you go through that checklist. So looking at them, okay? So looking at the checklist, let's do the first one first. So we're looking for a term with only one squared term because that is our parabola. In this one, in A, we have 2 squared terms, not a parabola. In B, we have 2 squared terms, not a parabola. In C, we only have 1 squared term, so it is a parabola. Because there's only 1 squared term. In D, 2 squared terms, not a parabola. Okay? Then, our second checklist is x squared minus y squared, or y squared minus x squared. Do we have x squared minus y squared in this one? Yes. So it is a hyperbola. Because of the subtraction sign. Subtraction sign between the squared terms. Nope, not a hyperbola. Subtraction sign between the squared terms. Nope, not a hyperbola. Okay, so that's our hyperbola. Third checklist. Coefficients the same. In B, are the coefficients on the squared terms the same? No, not the same. In D, same. Yes. So because they're the same, this is a circle. Because they're different, this is an ellipse. The difference comes in these 2 numbers right there versus those 2 numbers right there. Same, it's a circle. Different, it's an ellipse. Okay? Awesome sauce. What I would like you to do now is I'm going to kind of call on the last 4 weeks worth of knowledge. I would like you to write me the equation of each of these 2 conic sections, and then I would like you to find me the key parts too. Okay? You don't have to graph it. You just got to find the key parts. Okay? Go for it. Find me a circle with that radius, a parabola with those 2 conditions. And then find me the key parts. So, x minus 3 quantity squared plus y minus negative 2, which turns it into y plus 2, quantity squared equals 4 squared, which is 16, would be the equation of said circle. Yes? Yeah? Okay? And it gave us the 2 key parts. So, center is there, radius is there, would be the 2 key parts that we have. Okay? This one, it gave me 2 of the 4 key parts. Gave me the vertex. Gave me the focus. Okay. So we got those 2. So if I'm looking at this, I've got a vertex at -2, -4. So I got a vertex just there. And then I've got a focus at +4, -4, which then would give me this distance in here is 6. Which that distance is my p-value in parabola. This is a right opening. Because my focus needs to be inside the connet. Okay. So a right opening parabola is a y minus k quantity squared equals +4p times x minus h equation. So that's going to be y plus 4 quantity squared equals 4 times 6 is 24 times the quantity x plus 2. There for that one. Have the vertex, have the focus. We need the directrix. So the directrix would be 6 back this way, which would be a vertical line of x equals -8 would be the directrix for that one. We also need the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry would be y equals -4. Agree? Huh? Both on here? Yes, I do. Can I get them? There we are. So again, same thing. Write me an equation of the conic section and find me the missing key parts. So it gave us the vertices. It gave us the foci. That's good. That's 2 of the 4 parts that we needed. Okay. So then we had vertices at -1, 5, and 7, 5. We had foci at +1 and +5, 5. So halfway in between is going to be our center, midpoint, if you will, between those 2. So that would put the center at 3, 5. So we all agree with the center. So the first one being 3, 5. Okay. And that was the last missing one. Okay. So then now we can go with x minus 3 quantity squared all over something plus y minus 5 quantity squared all over something equals 1. We just have to figure out what said something is. This distance here from the center to a vertex is my A value, and that A value is 4, which would make my A squared then be 16. This distance from center to my foci, which would be C, is 2. So that's going to utilize C squared equals absolute value of A squared minus B squared. So C squared is the 4, is going to equal the absolute value of 16 minus something. Well, what taken away from 16 is 4? Yes. Huh? But then 20 is bigger than 16, right? Which means my vertices would have to move then. Correct? So 20 doesn't work. So then it's 12. So B squared here is 12. Equation, center, vertices, foci, everything that we need. Yes? Love it. Next up, we have a hyperbola. We have vertices. That was part of what we needed for our key points. We have foci. That was part of what we needed for our key points. And let's figure out where we got. So we've got 7, negative 3 for a vertice, 7, 1 for a vertice, 7, negative 6 for a focus, 7, 4 for a focus. Okay, so it looks like we've got an up-down hyperbola. That would be y minus k quantity squared all over b squared minus x minus h quantity squared all over a squared equaling 1. Agree with that? Center is going to be halfway in between. Where is the center? Seven, comma, what? -1. 7, -1. I would concur with that. That means then that we can go to y minus -1 would be y plus 1 quantity squared all over something minus x minus 7 quantity squared all over something equaling 1. Okay. Distance from center to a vertex is b, and b in this case is 2. Which would make that 4. Distance from the center to the foci is c. That distance is 5. C squared equals a squared plus b squared. So that's 25 equals a squared plus 4. What plus 4 is 25? 21. So a squared is 21. So there's our equation. Now we just have to come up with our asymptotes. So the equation for the slope of our asymptotes was plus or minus b, which is 2, over a, which is the square root of 21. So here's where that comes in. So let's just go to a calculator. So 2 divided by the square root of 21 is 0.44, we'll say. We'll drop a y equals mx plus b twice. Our center is at the point 7, comma, negative 1. So then this is going to be negative 1 is equal to positive 0.44 times 7 plus b. Negative 1 is going to equal 3.06 plus b. So we've got negative 4.06 is equal to b. So that would be then y equals 0.44x minus 4.06 as my first asymptote. Second asymptote, that's going to be negative 1 equals negative 3.06 plus b. Add 3.06 to both sides, I get 2.06 equals b. So then the other one would be y equals negative 0.44x plus 2.06. Okay. Love it. One last thing that I would like to show you, just as a preview of things to come on Wednesday, I would like to show you letter D here and what's going to happen on Wednesday with letter D. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to reorganize that, and we're going to be doing something called completing the square on Wednesday. Okay? So how we're going to reorganize this is we're going to group all the y's together, group all the x's together, and we're going to move everything else to the other side. So it's the same problem. X squared plus 16x plus y squared minus 8y, but now it's equal to negative 16. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this number here, and that's going to be my b value. I'm going to divide it by 2, and then I'm going to square it. So I'm going to add 64 there. That's where that comes from. Add that in there. But now my equation has become unbalanced. I got 64 more things on this side. So to make it become back in balance, I'm going to add 64 to that side. Then I'm going to do the same, except now I'm going to look at this number right here. And my b is going to be -8. So then I'm going to divide that by 2, and I'm going to get -4. Then I'm going to square that, and that's going to be +16. So I have to add that to both sides of my equation. Now, the nice thing is what I have done is I have created a perfect square trinomial, and that factors to be x plus 8 quantity squared. I have also created a second perfect square trinomial, and that factors to be y minus 4 quantity squared. So this number, let's see, let's go with red. This number goes there, which means that this number goes there, and then to the other side. These two numbers go here and here, and then this just equals 64. And so now it has become a circle with center where? -8, 4. With radius of 8. So we've taken our circle and we've written it in what we normally have. Now we can find it. We can find all the key points. Center. We could graph it. Now we could do like that. Okay. That's called completion of square. We're going to refresh those old memories on Wednesday. Good stuff. Okay.